So I had only the running animation. I've separated them. I have a walking animation, which is represented by the C states by Doom actors, and the running animation, which works even with a CL run console command. If I press shift, it switches the actor states as well. Since C is influenced by targets, the state change is kind of confused. But in general, the animations are separated now. I've made several changes to the process. Now I'm not separating the animations into different files anymore. Managing them by the frames inside Blender. So from 0 to 30, I have the walking cycle, and from 40 to 70, I have the running cycle. As you can see here, the walking cycle, for example. I've been studying walk and run cycles, so I've improved my animations. They're still pretty simple, but it's okay. So now I've optimized the frame indexes. Now I have one for each keyframe inside Blender. 0 is A, B is the 15 keyframe, and C is the 30th keyframe, and so on. The same for the running cycle as well. The separate one is for the idle animation. It's still on a separate MD3 file, but I'm going to create a new one and just incorporate it here. For the zscript, I had to study how I had to go a bit deeper on how Doom works. I understood that the player is a special actor called player pawn, and that I can capture the key presses and the key releases by overriding the event the methods inside event handler. The event handler class, as you can see here, if the shift key, which is 42, is pressed, or the CL run is toggled, this internal state is set to true or false, and thus the actual animation state changes. As you can see here, I've created a custom state. By default, there are no running state inside for any Doom monster or actor. There's no running state. So I believe I've achieved a nice framework to work with by dividing into 3 stages, dividing the animation into 3 separate stages. I've tried to work with just 2 letters going from 0 to 30 directly, but that does not work. I'm not sure why. I believe you have to have a ladder for each keyframe inside Blender. I'm not sure exactly how Nash's export script works specifically concerning that. But it's pretty okay now. I'll continue working on the animations and studying the animations. I followed some references, like I've just searched Blender run cycle, no, walk cycle, and this guy here, Sebastian Lag, is pretty awesome. He teaches pretty well the how to do it on Blender. I've also just searched walk cycles in general because these basic animation principles for a beginner like me, they were pretty useful. I've never studied animation before. Also, I had to understand how ticks work inside Doom, because these here are ticks. They are a measure of time inside the Doom engine, like the door speeds and the animation speeds in general follow this measurement. I'm not modifying the Blender output anymore as I was doing. That can lead to a behavior that it's hard to control, to debug. So I'm working with a natural animation as I want it to be inside the game. I'm working directly with the speed inside Blender, and when I'm satisfied with the speed here, I try to modify the ticks here. As you can see, if I change this to something like 16, save it and recreate the zip file for the mod and launch it as a file, as you can see, it's pretty slower, even slower than inside Blender. So you can control the animation using the ticks for your zscript class or decorate specification. There was something else I wanted to show you guys that I had trouble with. Yeah, it's important that your model has no, it must have 0 Z. It must be on the ground. It's not exactly on the ground here, but it must be 0, otherwise the export script's going to mess everything. And it's pretty bizarre. I don't understand exactly why, but it must be on 0 here. It's pretty important. So you have to adjust the scale. I've just for this specific model I had to scale up a bit, but you can also change the scale here. So 12 is a pretty arbitrary size. I could do something like this, 8. And you'll see that the model inside the game will be much smaller. As you can see here, the model is much smaller. It's quite buggy because by default it was a bit bigger, but anyway. I even believe that it can be something like 10 maybe. So I was experimenting with these. The wiki is not very helpful concerning 3D models. I personally find that smaller models play better, but as you can see, it scales to the default Blender size. Oh no, that's just the idle animation. No. Okay. That's just not the animation. It's just the idle model. Yeah, it is 12 here. But anyway, you can also change the size here. And there was something else I wanted to show you guys, maybe on the code here. I'm using this precise crosshair WOD. I modified its event handler, I've commented here, because I've tried to create separate zscripts here and add them here with a separate event handler, but you can't have two event handlers. That doesn't work well. Actually, it doesn't work at all. Also, I've studied on GZDoom forums. I've studied on scripting. There's this link here, zscript documentation. I studied this one. Really helps if you are a programmer already. Otherwise, it's pretty useless for you if you don't know how to program. It's a reference for those who really know what to search, what to go for it. So pretty much has the C++ syntax, but it's kind of hard to understand how the actual engine works. Concerning the actor states, for example, I had trouble understanding how to set the state, but I think that's it for now. There's even an extension here for VS Code called zscript, which implements language supports for zscript. The syntax highlighting is pretty useful. So that's basically it. Yeah, I'll study, and I'll be studying and recording more videos.